which is a well-known kind of practice done usually before as a training exercise for interpreters, especially if they are simultaneous interpreters, because simultaneous interpreters tend to have they need more exercises in the interpreting sessions or in the interpreting instructions, so that they know how to overcome any challenges during any session. Now, of course, just to remind you of what to do in interpreting or in simultaneous interpreting is to prepare yourself before you go. Usually you have to have 2 to 3 days where you read newspapers and articles about the conference that you are covering, read them in both languages, and that will be really a very difficult and very good thing, and it's a very, very important thing. Now, the second point, after you prepare yourself in English and Arabic, by reading articles in both languages and also by watching TV or videos about the conference or about the topic in both languages, so that you can accumulate the vocabulary, which is a very, very important terminology that you need to be using in the interpreting session. So preparation is one of the fundamental elements of simultaneous interpreting, which requires you to be good and spontaneous in your interpreting. And how does that happen? Usually, of course, you can do it using phrase by phrase or sentence by sentence, but it's better for phrase by phrase. When there is an adverbials, you do not wait until the whole sentence is finished. You try to finish each adverbial as you go along. Now, I have done in the previous, and I would advise all viewers to actually look at political translation 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 and 6, which I have done, in order to improve their what's called shadowing skill. Shadowing means that you repeat what other speakers are doing in the same language. So, for example, if there's a video which is speaking English, you just repeat what they are saying immediately as they speak it. So, in other words, you catch up with the speaker, but it has to be a speaker you can see in front of you. Do not do audio only. It has to be visual. You have to see the speaker, and this is one of the critical elements of interpreting, that you have to see who is speaking and what they are doing, in order to catch the reaction, in order to see how their facial gestures and expressions are, and also their body language. How do they, even though all the people who are watching these, the speaker can see that, but you do need to see that yourself in order to convey the same message in the same tone, in the same confidence, in the same way. Unless there's some sort of hesitation on the side of the speaker, then you can present a little bit of that, but not overdoing it. So you don't over-dramatize what they are doing. If they are laughing or crying or whatever, you do not need to act accordingly, but you need to deal with it in a light way. If they are speaking in a comical way, you need to give that touch of comical element in there, or if it is humorous or whatever. And if it is more serious or more, serious tone, then you have to prepare and give it in that pitch as well. Now, just going back on why did I say about the videos that you have seen before, which is what you need to be seeing before this one here, is that I have done what's called shadowing, but in a way it's more than shadowing. It is more of what's called sight translation, or I would call it sight interpreting. In other words, you use your sight to interpret. You look at the script and you interpret straight away into the other language. And that is what's called sight interpreting or sight translations. Some scholars call it sight translation. I would call it sight interpreting because you're using your sight to interpret. So you are looking at the text, in order to interpret. Now, this sight interpreting happens usually, sometimes it happens in courts where they give you evidence and they say to you, could you please interpret for us what it says here in a letter or an evidence they are providing. Here you have to do what's called sight interpreting, which means that you have to look at the text which is written and interpret in the other target language. And that is what you need to be doing throughout that document. So you have to finish the whole document. Well, you don't have to be very, they might ask you to do what's called summarizing what's being said, pointing out the main important elements in there. Now, just preparation, going into preparation in simultaneous interpreting. And I have used an exercise before. I told you about what is the first step in simultaneous interpreting. And one of the viewers asked me if there are any more exercises in simultaneous interpreting. And that is partly why I'm actually doing this video, because I want to make sure that you understand what kind of preparations you have to do and to be confident and to be able to finish your interpreting session when it is live straight away. Now, if you looked at my previous translation, political translation, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, you will see that's what I have done there is more or less sight interpreting. In other words, I looked at the script, which is in English, from newspapers, if it's political conference that you are attending. I looked at the newspapers there, and I have interpreted what they said in another language, in the target language, which is Arabic. So I use I use my finger to show you where I'm moving, or I use the cursor at times. I'm going to do the same exercise today in support of the political translation 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 videos that I have done earlier, in which I have actually done what can be called shadowing or sight. Not shadowing, because shadowing is repeating in the same language, but sight interpreting is you are interpreting. You are actually doing the output yourself. We call them input and output. Input is what you hear, and output is what you speak. And in the output here, in this case, or the case of the sight interpreting, the output is verbal or oral, if you like, and the input is written, which is in the sight interpreting. It's more written, and you are looking at the written form or written document, and you are interpreting it into an oral form, which is what you are producing as an output. I'm just going to actually go now into one of the websites again, but this time it's going to be Newsweek, which is a magazine where they have more articles, and I will show you how you will do what's called sight interpreting. You can't do shadowing as much because there's nobody speaking and you're repeating what they are saying, but this is more of sight interpreting, where you are looking at some written form and you are doing that. Let's say, for example, here, U.S. military suspects service member may have set off April Syria blast. This is about Syria. If we click on it, and I will sight interpret it well. So, إذا يشكك مسؤول في الجيش الولايات المتحدة، وما بنقول الجيش الأمريكي. I came across many ways. Many are saying الجيش الأمريكي. It's not. ليس الجيش الأمريكي، وإنما جيش الولايات المتحدة الأمريكي، تشمل كندا والمكسيك وغيرها. فإذا يشكك مسؤول في الجيش الأمريكي، في الجيش الولايات المتحدة عفوا، بأن هناك شخص أو عضو في الخدمة، في خدمة العالم، لربما
هو الذي أشعل هذا الانفجار، أو الذي أحدث هذا الانفجار في أبريل في سوريا. لنقرأ النص. هذا هو النص. أنا أريد أن أقوم بالسايت interpreting. تحقق وزارة الدفاع مع عضو يخدم في الجيش التابع للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية بشأن تورط محتمل في هجوم على قاعدة تابعة للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية في سوريا، حيث أصيب عدد من العاملين العسكريين هناك. أفاد متحدث باسم قسم التحقيق الجنائي التابع للجيش في الولايات المتحدة ومختصرها CID أنه أفاد وكالة الأنباء Associated Press في يوم الاثنين، يعني البارحة، لأن هذا اليوم يوم الثلاثاء، البارحة، أنه تم تحديد عضو يخدم في الجيش الأمريكي في جيش الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، لم يذكر اسمه أو لم يفصح عن اسمه، على أنه مشتبه فيه، مشتبه محتمل في هذا الحادث الذي وقع في أبريل نيسان هذه السنة. ففي حين أن الجيش الولايات المتحدة يؤكد أنه قد عامل هذا الحدث أو هذه الحادثة على أنه هجوم داخلي، يعني من داخل القاعدة، وهو محتمل، هذا هو المحتمل. وثمة تفاصيل أساسية عن التحقيق تبقى على أن يتم الكشف عنها. فقسم التحقيق الجنائي ومكتب سلاح الجو التابع لهذه التحقيقات الخاصة التي التابع للتحقيقات الخاصة، إذن يحقق في هذه الحادثة، ومتحدث باسم هذا القسم اسمه باتريك بارنز أعلم أو أخطر وكالة Associated Press بأنه لن ترفع أي تهم في هذا الوقت، وذلك حسب ما ورد لدى وكالة Associated Press للأنباء. إذن كما نرى as we can see here كما نرى هنا أن as we can see here it is not that difficult to actually, but you need to prepare yourself. I mean, for example, the Pentagon, وزارة الدفاع, you can translate it as Pentagon, or the Ministry of Defense in the US, and so on. If we go to another piece of news, again, for example here, but this is about Zelensky. Let's have a look at this again as well. This is another story here. Here, for example, مثال آخر، يصرح زيلينسكي بأن الهجوم المعاكس قد أعاد أو استرد سيفرنو دونتسك بتكاليف باهظة للغاية أو لدرجة مفرطة، لأن too costly معناها لدرجة لا تطاق. many translators don't translate the word to as بإفراط. Let's look at this particular piece of news and we cite interpret. صرح رئيس أوكرانيا فلوديمير زيلينسكي أن استرداد مدينة سيفرون دونتسك طبعا I have to mention about foreign names. You need to revise and train yourself on the names because it's not nice not to be able to pronounce the names of foreign names in your language. Severo Donetsk. Severo Donetsk. So إذن بأن هذا الاسترداد قد تم بتكلفة باهظة في المعدات وأن الجنود والجنود أيضا وأن الجنود تكلفة بالمعدات والجنود and the troops should يعني هذا ما حدث ف I think should the East Ukraine fall يعني في حال سقطت لأن هنا يعني مثل conditional في حال سقطت هذه المدينة الأوكرانية في المنطقة الشرقية في أيدي أو بأيدي القوات الروسية. وقد قال هذه التعليقات في يوم الاثنين زيلينسكي متوجها بها إلى الصحفيين بأن في الوقت الذي يبدو أن القوات الروسية تسعى إلى السيطرة على المدينة وسط قتال محتدم حسب التقارير برافدا الأوكرانية. وهذا الاعتراف هون كلمة admission معناها اعتراف من قبل زيلينسكي وهذا الاعتراف يأتي بينما تتقدم قوات الروسية في لوهانسك منطقة لوهانسك الشرقية التابعة لأوكرانيا بعد أن تم دفعها إلى الوراء أو إرجاعها خلال مرحلة سابقة من الصراع. والرئيس الروسي فلاديمير بوتين يسعى إلى السيطرة على لوهانسك بالإضافة إلى دونيسك ومنطقة دونيسك ريجن منطقة دونيسك إلى الجنوب الغربي. كما تلاحظون أنه sometimes I can switch into a language switching issue here which is quite normal for interpreters but you shouldn't have. في الوقت الذي أو في حين أن الانفصاليين الذين يدعمهم الكرملين أي تدعمهم روسيا لأن الكرملين هي تمثل مجلس يعني الرئاسة في روسيا يصرحون بأن يصرحون للجمهوريات التي declared بأن الجمهوريات الانفصالية بالإضافة إلى الحدود الشرقية لأوكرانيا. يعني هي طبعا هو الغرب يعني جنوب الغربي حيث في هذا الجنوب الغربي الذي هو يعني يصرحون بأنهم أو يعلنون هون إعلان عن الجمهوريات المنفصلة على طول هذا الساحل على طول هذه الحدود. وشكرا.